Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Now today we're going to be doing some photography. I'm going to be showing you how I take pictures like this. So let's go! Now there are of course many ways you can take pictures of your props that you make. Today I'm going to be using my lightsaber, which I made in my last video for my £20 lightsaber challenge. This is my one, but this is going to be our subject for today's shoot. And of course there are many ways you could photograph it. But today we're talking about getting good photos that are really impressive and that really show off your work to the best that it can look. Now I am by no means a professional photographer or videographer, but I do it a fair bit and I've learned a few ways that I like to work when taking photos. I'm always open to learning new things, and I often watch videos on videography, photography, and how to get the most out of the cameras that you use. Now today I'm mostly going to be taking pictures on my Canon 200D, which is this camera that I'm shooting on right now. It takes great pictures and great video, but in this day and age, most of us do have a smartphone that do a damn decent job too of taking photos and video, so I'm going to be showing you how I use that as well. It really doesn't matter what camera you use, you can really get good pictures using just basic equipment. Now when I want to show off a prop, I often approach it in quite an organic way, but in this case we're actually going to do a bit of research. I wanted to get a specific look when photographing this lightsaber, and I'd found a few reference pictures online that I wanted to copy. Now this is important. You can look at how other people have photographed and show off their things and just pull out the points that you like from their photos, whether it's the lighting, the staging, the angles. It could be the colors of the photo, which we will look at later on when we get to editing the photos. But this is the photo that inspired me, and it's one that I want to recreate with my own lightsaber. You have to work out what it is you want your photo to achieve, and if that is showing off your prop, which is what we want to do, you have to set up the photo in a way that does that. So there's no point in the photo being moody and dark if you want to show off the details of your prop, because you just won't be able to see it. So you just have to make sure that the way you're setting up your photo is going to match what you want the photo to do. So as you can see, I'm lucky enough to have my display cases here with all my props that I make. So often this can make quite a good background for my pictures. Quite often if I want to take a picture just for Instagram or something to show off a prop quickly, I will frame my picture something like this and just snap my photo, and you can see that all over my feed where I do that with different items. Also I have my cutting mat down here, which is not only a good surface to work on, but it also makes quite a good surface for pictures. I often frame pictures as well, so they crop out this horrible table colour, but just so it's sort of set something like that and snap away. But for this saber this time I'm going to do something a little bit more involved. We're actually going to set up something with some lights from different directions and set up a surface for it to sit on, and then add some effects later just so we can get close to that image that inspired us. It's not going to be exactly the same, but let's see what we can get by setting up a little set. Now with photography you need a lot of light. Now when I film against my background here, I have a big natural window here, I have my spotlights on, I have another spot on up there, and also a light set up here which lights the other side of my face. And this produces a great result when filming me, but today we're going to be using this and using these lights to our advantage. So for today's picture I'm going to be using this. Now this is actually the aluminium I'm using for my Rivendell Guard armor cosplay, which is still ongoing, but I've got this big sheet just lying around, so it's going to make a really good surface to shoot this on. We get some nice reflections of the saber underneath, but this is just plain. Obviously the angle is not right. The lighting is not right. This is all the lights turned on, so it shows the lightsaber up reasonably well, but we want to get a bit more sort of depth and angle in there, and we can do that by starting to change the camera settings. So just by adjusting my exposure a little bit, you can see we start to get a bit more contrast in the whole picture. Now I need to learn a lot more about photography, but you have your aperture and how long that is open for will mean how much light is getting into the camera. And what I want to do for this photo is really light up my lightsaber with a lot of light here, and then we're going to adjust the angle so that the background is really dark. That way we should have a really nice spotlight on here. What I'm going to do is first set up the angle. That's the easiest to do. Now I have the camera on a tripod. It can move, but it's generally stable. So what we're going to do is start to frame up the image how I want it. Now we've got to get this right down and then zoomed right in. Now I have the kit lens on here, which is an 18 to 55mm lens, so I've got a degree of zoom on there, but I'm going to just lower the tripod down. I'm going to move the legs down. So this is already loads better. It's way closer to our reference image, and we're getting some really nice reflections under here. Now I can also play with obviously how this is sitting. In the reference it's more like this. I don't know if I like that more, or having the buttons visible in some way. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I like seeing the emitter section here, and I like seeing this button. You can't see the box this way, but maybe something like that. Or do I like that better? We can try both. We'll do both. Let's leave it like that for now. Now here's the shot with just my big window light over there. As you can see, makes something quite atmospheric. We're really getting some nice highlights on here. But I'll show you what happens when there are my LED lights up the top. So they point almost directly down from this direction also. There is a light behind it, which really helps start picking up the highlights on the edge. I can even turn on my other side light, see what happens. That really brings in the highlights on here. Let's turn that down maybe. Well, maybe I don't like that at all. So that is my aperture way open, which is obviously too much. And if I bring it the other way, it's way too little. Now I may actually clear out those bright things in the background there, because I really want that background to be dark. There we go, now some of those things in the background have been removed, so you don't get any of those kicks above it. Now we can always Photoshop this later, but I really want that top background bit to be dark, so we'll remove all the little artifacts later. But right now we're just focusing on getting this picture of the saber in the foreground. Got my spotlight here, and I'll start moving it around to see where I want reflections and light. I can turn it up. And get turned right up, and spotting on here can create some really nice effects, and we really start to focus on that saber. Now here's the same shot but taken on my phone. Obviously I can't take pictures while I'm doing this, but here is the video footage from my phone, which is pretty decent. You can shoot video and photos on here, but I'm going to take a few pictures on here too to show you the difference. I'm using a Samsung Galaxy S10 Plus. So here I'm going to try and get the same kind of shot. This is the kind of thing. Now on my phone I do have 3 cameras, so there's the basic shot. We have a zoomed in shot, which isn't bad. It's fairly decent. And there's also a wide angle, so this can really get in, but this will really distort the shape of it in this kind of mode when we try and get up close. Now of course we also have the Pro mode. This is actually showing where to focus here, and we can also adjust all the aperture and everything on here too to really darken that down. So we can actually get pretty close to that that camera image that we took on the DSLR. Yep, so the phones nowadays can be pretty much as good as the camera, but of course the camera's going to have that better sensor on it and just take that little bit better quality photos. So we've taken a few good pictures on the DSLR, so we're going to jump into the computer and use Photoshop and Lightroom. Now the good thing about the camera is that I can shoot in RAW format, so when we jump into Lightroom we can have a lot more control over the things that we can change in the image. There's a lot more data captured by the camera. Now Lightroom's a pretty new program for me. I've only recently started using it since getting my DSLR, so I'm just beginning to incorporate it into my workflow. Once you've imported that raw image, you can see on the right here we've got all the different settings we can start playing with, including the exposure, the contrast, the highlights, the shadows, whites, blacks, and all I do is start moving these around to just see what it does to the image. For this one that we have taken here, what I want to do is really just highlight the lightsaber itself. I'm not too worried about what's going on in the background, we can change that later. All I want to do is play with the black levels, the highlight levels, and just sort of find where it really starts to look good, really. The color temperature is also important. I tried it on the warm side, but I found going more towards the cool tones suited this picture very well with that metal look we've got going on underneath. There's settings like the clarity, which when you pump it right up, it really pushes all the details, or you can soften all the details right down. Now usually I just pump them up a little bit, which gives the picture more in the style that I like taking, but as you can see we're just playing with them here and trying to find what looks good for this picture. And the haziness can soften or sort of bring more into focus your picture, and the vibrance, that ups the mid-range of your colors, so it's not like the saturation in that it does the whole saturation and desaturation of the image. The vibrance will just push those middle ranges to give you a bit more or less color in the middle. And over on the right you can see the before and after in the history and the changes that we've made. Now we're just cropping the image. Sometimes I do this first just to get the composition right, but as you can see I approached it sort of a little after the color adjustment just to see what we wanted to do. I just wanted to cut out some of that negative space that we had at the top and side there. Of course, in image making there's the classic rule of thirds, and we want to get the points of interest on those lines. At this point I was pretty happy with the image, and it was time to save it as a JPEG and then move into Photoshop. Now the first thing I did in Photoshop was duplicate my layer. This means that I've got an image to work on which won't ruin our base image. And then the first job was to paint out this background. I wanted to remove all those artifacts that are distracting up in the background. So I just picked a dark color and a soft brush with a nice soft edge and just painted those out on a new layer. Making the brush larger means the edge is a little softer, so I use that to really blend the metal into that darkness at the top, so you really lose all sense of what's behind there. We've got to be careful to avoid the spill over onto the saber. You could do this by masking, but in this case it wasn't that important, and I just went in afterwards and made sure all the saber was clear of all that black we put down. And there we go, you can see the before and after. It's way better. Now there's these scratches on my aluminium that we shot the photo on, so I decided that the scratches over on the right here were a bit distracting to the focusing on the lightsaber in the middle, so I'm just using the spot healing brush to go over those. This will take data from around that scratch and interpret what it thinks it should look like without it. So in that sense it heals the image. As you can see, it does a pretty good job of just removing those scratches, and it just meant that I think we focus more towards the saber than over on these light highlights over on the right. Now one of the main things I wanted to do was add a smoke effect to the front of the saber, as if it's just been turned off and we've got a little bit of residual energy or whatever. This is close to the reference images that we had, and they had that smoke coming off, and I'm just playing with, I've got a few smoke brushes in my library of brushes, so I just went and found one that I liked and then started playing with applying it in different scales and in different colors. You can bring the opacity right down and then it looks way more blended with the scene. I then use my rubber with the opacity turned down as well, and we can just sort of start blending that smoke into the background and have it fade off nicely and naturally. I kind of decided that the white wasn't for me, and that I wanted it to be more the colour that the saber would have been, which in this case I want to be blue, because that's going to tie in really nicely with the tones that we've got going in the photo already. So I just went into the hue and saturation and applied a colorize filter to make it blue. I wanted a bit more residual smoke as well in the background, so you can see here I'm adding a little bit more, but we're really lowering that opacity and blending it into the rest of the scene. Again, I don't know why I wasn't just putting this in blue, but I'm applying that hue and saturation colorize pass afterwards just to make it blue and blend it with how I want the photo to look. I also decided some atmospheric smoke was a good idea, so here we go, we're just going to scale up a big chunk of smoke and then bring the opacity right back, and then again change the hue and saturation to blend it into the scene. You see it really starts adding some colour and extra tone to the picture, which is really nice. And the same thing to the foreground, just adding another smoke element. Again, this can kind of focus us in on the part of the image that's nice and sharp, which is our lightsaber. Now I want to add a nice glow effect to where the lightsaber would have come out, as if the lightsaber has literally just turned off and we're just getting the very end of that light coming out of the emitter. I hadn't quite decided how I was going to do this, but decided to go in first, start painting with the white. That didn't look right, so then I went with the blue and thought I'd play with the color blend modes, and this started to create the look that I wanted. Generally I would use something like an overlay, a screen or a soft light, and just see how this is affecting the image that we're working on. And as you can see, it turns that brass color a really nice blue, like the blue is coming from the inside. I also put all the layers doing this effect into a group, that way we can just sort of turn it on and off more easily and see what the effect is doing to our image. I just slowly built these layers up, focusing more as we go towards the inner side of that, just so it looks a little bit brighter down there. And then just playing with the blend modes and opacity once again to make it look good. I also decided to add more smoke coming out of the emitter, but more in a highlight layer, so that this light that we've just put on is actually causing some effect on the smoke. So focusing where that's hitting right down near the emitter, this really helps sell the smoke effects that we've put in and that the light is actually acting upon them. After that, all I did was boost the brightness and contrast a little bit, and that's it. The picture was done.
So there we go, guys. I hope you enjoyed this quick look at how I do my prop photography. I'm really happy with how the photo turned out, and that's what I'm going to be posting on social media, so if you head over to Instagram, that's where it will be.
As for the lightsaber, it's now done, and it's going to take a proud place up on the shelf. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's a little bit of a departure for me from the usual build videos, but if you want to see more videos like this, the sort of behind the scenes of it all, do let me know, because I'll see what I can do. As always, I will see you in the next video, and until then, take care. Bye bye.